I am Kim Joyce. I'm Director of Instructional Design in the Department of Education at the University of Richmond.
I have some questions for our senior thesis. Our first question is, what is your experience with ELL students?
I haven't worked directly with ELL students. However, I worked with students with special needs for 15 years in the K-12 schools as a speech and language pathologist. I also teach a course now for future teachers entitled Diverse Learners, and the course prepares future teachers to not only reach ELL students by varying their instruction and assessment, but also all types of learners.
Okay. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the current method used in the classroom with ELL students?
Well, one of the weaknesses I see is that schools just do not have adequate funding. They don't have enough trained teachers in ELL instruction or even the materials to teach ELL students. A strength is that some schools try to make the children feel welcome, and some are really trying to meet the needs of ELL students and their families. For example, in Henrico County Public Schools, they've developed a Welcome Center, and at the Welcome Center it assists the parents and the students when they are new to the county so that they can register for school.
What are your thoughts of the current methods of educating ELL students? For example, ESL, bilingual, and dual immersion programs.
Well, a lot of the methods that are used today are also used for other diverse learners. It's very important that students plan to address the students' individual needs. Today's classrooms are very, very diverse, especially since it takes about 7 to 8 years to learn a new language and speak fluently. Students have to be fluent not only in conversation, but also at a cognitive level, developmentally in that language to master new content knowledge. Students are pulled out for support services so that as they become more proficient in their language, the new language, then they go to the general education class more often. Personally, I think that the dual language immersion programs with the use of the SIOP method is one of the best because it doesn't waste a lot of time in the classroom for the teachers or the students. And it lets the students learn the material in their native language while they're learning English. Nearby at Tucker High School, it is a great example of the implementation of this model.
What is appealing about the SIOP method?
Well, first, the SIOP is an acronym for Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. It was developed by researchers who compared English language learning students in classes whose teachers had been trained in the use of the SIOP model compared to those teachers who had not been trained in the model. For example, those students in those classes with the trained teacher scored significantly higher on their writing scores than the control group. Those researchers continue to study and collect the data in other areas now, reading, science, and English language development, and studies continue to show that this model does work. The model makes it very, very clear on what the teacher wants the students to do and also how the teacher can meet the needs of the ELL students. It meets the learning needs of the students by structuring learning in a way that offers vocabulary development, adaptive content, links to prior learning, varied strategies, very strong reading, writing, and listening instruction, a lot of scaffolding like modeling, guided and independent practice, application with hands-on activities that are meaningful and respectful, flexible grouping, and varied assessment models. Basically, the SIOP model is really good lesson planning and effective assessment. Methods and strategies of that model would work to meet the needs of all learners. With most other methods, proficiency level in English does not affect their academic performance because you need to identify where they are first in their English proficiency, then be sure that they can master the content on a cognitive level, especially in literacy areas such as reading comprehension and writing. We all know that you can speak a language first before you understand it, and understanding the levels of language proficiency of a student will help determine what levels of content area skills and knowledge they can successfully master in the classroom.
Do you think that ELL students of different ages should undergo different English acquisition programs?
Some say that children will learn more and better at a better pace if they are just placed in a general education classroom, kind of immersed, because it forces them to learn the English language among their peers and from their peers. However, without introduction of new knowledge at the same time, if they're not understanding what they're learning in the classroom in their native language, the process of language acquisition can be very complicated at any age level. And it can hinder the student from learning anything more than just basic knowledge in the content areas such as science, social studies, math, at a cognitive level that matches their ability level. This often leads to frustration and is not very motivating for the student.
What are your thoughts about not having ESL bilingual nor dual language immersion program as an option?
If the student's proficiency level is to a point where they understand enough to master new content, then support services may not be needed. However, I strongly believe that those services have to be an option, because if the student has a low level of language proficiency and is putting a high grade level, it's not very likely that they will understand much of the curriculum. I think this option is critical because since the No Child Left Behind NCLB was implemented, it's been documented that dropout rates are rising and many students are failing the required high stakes test required of them.